Despite several alterations to the Constitution to address the shortcomings of a system that has denied the nation the opportunity of attaining its full potentials. Among these imperfections are the high cost of governance, leaving fewer resources for crucial areas like infrastructure, education, and healthcare, and consequently hindering the nation's development progress, and the excessive powers vested in members of the executive who are appointees and not directly accountable to the people. The bills that were presented today for the first reading seek a return to the system of government adopted by our fathers, which made governance accountable, responsible, and responsive.
We expect that the process may not necessarily terminate with the current administration. In actual fact, we expect that it will even go beyond 2027. But what is important is that we have set the ball rolling. And so it may go as far as the actual commencement may even be 2031.
Joining us now is Osita Okechukwu, former Director General, Voice of Nigeria. Good morning, Mr. Okechukwu, and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning, Sister Ayo. Good morning, Dr. Ruby. Good morning, Incisive Rufai.
Morning, sir.
And viewers worldwide.
Okay, Mr. Okechukwu, so many issues on the table. I know how you have introduced the choice between parliamentary system of government and presidential system of government. But I saw a message from you on the issue of state police, and I would like to start with that, because what you are recommending, I need clarification on it. You are recommending that we activate section 105 to 109 of the Nigerian Police Act to introduce what you call special constabulary police. And I'm worried about that because special constabulary police was actually a colonial invention from about 1820, when the colonial overlords established police. We had the Hausa constabulary, at a point. I think that was about 1878. Then we had the Lagos police in 1888. Then we had the Niger Delta, constabulary. And then later we had the Royal Niger Constabulary, all used by the, colonial masters to brutalize the natives, as they call them, and to impose their will. And then, of course, later on, we had the Nigerian police emerging with a merger of, these constabularies, and then calling the Nigerian police force. So are you suggesting that we return to the colonial origins of the Nigerian police and, have a police that in theory and in practice will be further oppressing the Nigerian people? Since you say the governors, if you give them state police, they will abuse it. I thought that was what I read in the message you sent to me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ruby. My canvas is simply a migration from special constabulary to state police. Migration, a progressive one. One, because there's a paradox on the ground, as you well stated. There's intense public paranoia against the Nigerian police force that failed to secure us, on one hand. On the other hand, is also intense public paranoia against the state governors, our dear governors, who have scant regard for the rule of law, who had failed to even obey the 1999 Constitution as amended when the 80th National Assembly, under distinguished Senator Bukola Saraki and President Buhari, amended that same Constitution and said there should be first-line charge of funding to state judiciary and the state legislature. The governors running around, bipartisan, even my own great party, the APC, they went to the Supreme Court and challenged it, never implemented it. In that same bill was the autonomy for local government. About 23 states of the Federation, state assemblies, voted against it. That today, majority of our local councils are in breach of Section 7 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which in simplicity means there is no democracy at that level. And if you do a careful study on what they call the state INEC across the board, it's very few. I think it was Malamé Rufai's Kaduna, where the opposition got few seats. In my state in Enugu, they conducted over 4 local council elections. The opposition never got one out of the 260 local councils. And it's same applicable in majority of the states of the country. So that paranoia is where I benched my canvas. That our governors are akin to emperors. They do not obey the rule of law. They don't know about the Constitution. They are not transparent. And even some of them have no fund to manage a state police. So why don't we allow them to collaborate with the Nigerian police force and recruit the constabulary? You can recruit 2,000, depending on your state, 3,000, 4,000. But it's managed in collaboration. And then we can also look into the rejigging of the Nigerian police force, because he's also a fall guy in what we are saying. And we should also plead to whoever becomes president that please, when you want to nominate an Inspector General of Police, DIGs, do a careful examination of the files. I'm not talking of the present IG, but I'm talking subsequently that if Osito Okechukwu becomes president tomorrow, my kinsmen will rally around me. I said, an Igbo must be IG. When you do so, you demoralize the officers and men in the camp. You have failed to choose the best out of the file, which should guide us. So we need to reject the police force, but it's still at the same time for us to work on a gradual progression as stipulated in, if you go through that section 105, 109 of the Police Act of 2020, a lot of people have not taken time to go through it. Is a silver bullet that kills 2 birds with 1 stone. It gives leverage to state governors and the local group to manage the constabulary with the police, Nigerian police force. Without leaving the police in their hand. If you do so, then it's goodbye to Nigerian democracy. Okay. That is my fear. Okay. I'm not saying that the Nigerian police force has done so well, no. But I also know that if the National Assembly and Mr. President looks into how to reject the police force, I had a kinsman that was kidnapped on September 2023.
All right, Mr. Okechukwu, I'd like to call
we have been looking for him.
Mr. Okechukwu.
Do you know that we are using private tracker to look for the kidnappers?
All right.
Because some of the equipment in police force are broken down.
All right, I hear you, Mr. Okechukwu, and there's so many. It's a debate that will definitely go on for a while. The president is also having that conversation with the state governors, and it looks like there's some form of alignment there with regards to the proposal for state police. I hear you, but I'd like to come back to that conversation around the 60 reps who are proposed for a return to parliamentary system of government. It's igniting a conversation around the system that's currently in operation in Nigeria. Is it working? Is federalism working, or should we go back to a parliamentary system of government? There have been many arguments, back and forth. What's your take on this very quickly because of our time?
Okay, my sister, before I come to that, the decision that is going for the state police is political grievance decision. On parliamentary, it is a political grievance. Parliamentary election by origin, sometimes in the 11th century or so, started in California, in what is called Barcelona today, Catalonian region in Spain. Secondly, in Kyiv. In fact, some people have argued in Athens. Before it came to UK, it was a parliamentary assemblage. If you want to reduce the cost of governance, you can reduce that under presidential system. You just take the National Assembly to present a bill to Mr. President that, given the situation we find ourselves, where it's becoming difficult for the poor workers and average Nigerian to find something to eat, we think that our emolument and salary is so high. We are cutting it. Mr. President was advising the executive should also cut theirs. That's what they owe the country, not the system of governance. If you have parliamentary system, it can also be bicameral. It can be unicameral. And if you are saying in 2030, please, we are saying that today Nigeria is in dire straits, that we'll call on the National Assembly, instead of postponing the day of change of system of government, to buckle up the political will to reduce the budget of the National Assembly, the budget of the executive. If you do so, the Nigerian state will queue in, because the example must come from the center and go down the line. But if you are working in a system where the governors are not accountable, where the local councils are not accountable, even as much as the center, and you are thinking that it's the system of governance that is the problem. I don't think so.
Okay. So you've talked about this parliamentary system. Remember the good old days of the parliamentary system in Nigeria and all of that. But one other part of the conversation I'd like to bring to the fore is it a need for parliamentary system or full restructuring that we need in the country? The fact that one part, his center, still holds sway, rather than us having different parts, being able to grow at their own pace, just like we had the Western region and other regions in the 60s, which some people say did not harmonize unity. And would you favor a method where, like the 63 Constitution was talking about, that we should have states or regions that have mineral resources pay a certain percentage of what they get to the federal purse, rather than the government controls everything and have this quota sharing system where, they share through FAC and all of that? Shouldn't that be that about the conversation? Because let's not also forget, the parliamentary system we all looked at as good old days had a lot of corruption. We all remember a famous minister of finance and corrupt activities in this country. That was under a parliamentary system. So it has its own problems too, if not properly managed.
Thank you, Rufai. We are still on the same bend, on the same bind. Because of the hardship in the country, because of the helplessness, the metastasis of grief, we are trying to look backwards. That's not the issue. The issue, I told some of my governor friends, I asked some of them, how much do you get a month? They will tell you. I said, okay, how much is salary? They will tell you. I said, are you calling 1 billion naira a small money? The issue is that we are not prudently managing the funds that come especially to the local council and the state level. It is not about restructuring. Are we going to throw away those people who have corrupted the system? If we restructure and say that the Southeast, for instance, should become a region, what will happen to those who could not manage the affairs of their state today? Are they not going to be part of the commune of the restructured region? So let us come alive. We should come alive. That was part of the problem we had we keep on telling President Buhari. We said part of what the support we gave you was that if you hear that Osito Okechukwu stole a kobo, Osito Okechukwu will be in jail the next day.
Well,
We didn't meet up with that.
Okechukwu.
It's still time for us to come to that. Let us look into how to energize Olukayode and others that are managing the anti-corruption agencies and leave them to move. If they could move with velocity, we don't need any restructure. We can fix the country.
Okay, Mr. Okechukwu. Well, I mean, we seem to be running out of time. But those who are calling for restructuring are saying, look, we can't reorganize this country on an ad hoc basis. And restructuring was one of the major pillars of campaign for your party. A committee was even set up to look into it. And now I'm surprised that an APC chieftain will say, well, we don't need a restructuring. You know, the people calling for restructuring are calling for a far more comprehensive thing, whether it's system of government or it is state police. This system of government, who is going to run the parliamentary system? These same people who are, running big government? Where would the Nigerians who will run that new system come from? So it's also about our attitude to governance, whether parliamentary or presidential. But thank you very much for joining us.